in a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv. Police say the incident involved a shooting and a car ramming. The victims were all tourists, but it's unconfirmed where they're from. It's the second deadly attack in the region today after two British-Israeli sisters were shot dead in their car in the occupied West Bank. Violence has flared between Israel and Palestine in recent days over Muslim and Jewish holidays. The UK Foreign Office is calling for all sides to de-escalate tensions. Opposition politicians in Scotland are urging the SNP to be fully transparent about its finances. After it emerged the firm which audits the party's accounts has resigned. Johnston Carmichael says it made the decision after reviewing its client portfolio. Earlier this week, the former SNP chief executive, Peter Murrell, who is Nicola Sturgeon's husband, was arrested by police investigating the party's finances. He was released without charge pending further investigation. Russia has charged a US journalist with espionage. Evan Gershkovich, who works for the Wall Street Journal, is accused of trying to obtain Russian military secrets on behalf of Washington. He pleaded not guilty earlier this week and maintains he was working as a journalist. But President Joe Biden has described the claims of espionage as ridiculous and has demanded his release. And the manager of S Club 7 has paid tribute to the singer Paul Cattermole, who's died unexpectedly at the age of 46. Simon Fuller described him as a beacon of light for a generation of pop music fans. His death comes just weeks after the group announced a comeback tour. He was found at his home in Dorset yesterday. Police say there were no suspicious circumstances. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. We hope you're having a good Friday. I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight I'm joined by a Headliners OG lineup. Josh Howie. And Nick, the big dog, Dixon. Ruff, ruff, ruff. How are you both doing?
I'm good, mate.
Yeah, loving it, loving life.
Right.
I didn't prepare anything for the awkward banter section, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you get. We get three autistic men and have banter written on auto cue. Anyway, let's have a quick look at Saturday's front pages. We've got the Daily Mail with Kate found walkabout with Harry and Meghan, one of the hardest things she's ever had to do. She must not ever had to work night shift in a petrol station. Then The Guardian has personalised cancer jabs may be ready in 5 years. Bit of good news there. The Times has housing targets scrapped. The Telegraph has two sisters shot dead in West Bank. The Eye goes with Blair, don't take peace in Northern Ireland for granted. Maybe he's planning another invasion. And finally, the Daily Star has suns out, buns out, spring heatwave next week. I think we play. I wish I could press that button myself. Anyway, let's kick things off with the front page of Saturday's Guardian, Josh.
Yeah, so there's a nice picture of the Queen there with a horse. Revealed royals made $2 million from sale of horses received as gifts. And then you can see the Queen looking at the horse going, it seems to be the Guardian suggesting that the Queen's thinking, oh, I'm going to make loads of money from you, which I think is disgraceful.
Well, considering she's dead, she's probably not making that much money from it right now. But what she's doing there is looking a gift horse in the mouth.
Hey, very good.
No problem.
That was your best work. I like the bit where you stared at the camera blankly, but that was even better.
I have to wait for this thing. It's the format of the show. The blank stare is just incidental.
I'm impressed, and I'm slightly angry and jealous that I didn't get that one. I didn't think of it. Very well done.
I didn't even see the picture.
But this cancer jab, this is
the big one. Personalised cancer jabs may be ready in 5 years. Essentially, COVID, turns out there was a bit of a silver lining there because it sort of accelerated this work on this particular vaccine. We're going to get into that. You're insane. But they're saying, like, sort of within 3 years, it was about 15 years amount of work. So within the next 10 years or so, we can have these personalised jabs because what it does is it attacks, it gets the bad stuff in your body to bring out a protein that then they can identify to attack, that the body itself can attack.
Right.
That's the idea behind it. That's the science.
So it uses your body's own immune system to attack the cancer cells.
But what it really does is it goes into it finds the different parts of the body that it's trying to attack, whether it's cancer, whether it's a virus, whatever it is, and it's sort of so it can make a special kind of vaccine to deal with that particular ailment.
Yeah.
That's the gist of it. So that sounds good to me. But let's speak to Dr. Matthew Sweet over here.
I just want to say, it's great. It's come from Moderna. They've got a great record on jabs. and I just hope there's no sort of Chinese sort of cancer virus and that we don't have to rush this thing. That's all I'm worried about.
Okay, so you want the appropriate time?
Yeah, let's just check it out, do it properly. I'm sure they would.
You take it, though, in the long... If it was, like, safe.
Do you know what? That's actually interesting because, of course, I'm trying to say the words interesting question. That's an interesting question because... I'm famously terrified of cancer, but haven't taken any of these dodgy jabs. So it's like satirically calling them dodgy jabs. Obviously, they're safe and effective. So it's kind of the ultimate. It's the ultimate challenge for me. It's like, are you more scared of this, or are you more like sticking to your principles about this? My principles of not taking.
Which one's going to lose you more Twitter followers?
And I guess the issue is like for COVID, that's an extremely survivable respiratory illness. So I mean, I wasn't really scared of COVID, so I didn't get the jab. Then I got COVID, and I wished I'd got the jab. But I mean, I still haven't had any jabs or boosters, whereas cancer is something that's a bit more serious.
Yeah, it's real and it can actually kill you.
According to some conspiracy theorists.
Anyway, moving on, what are the Times leading with, Nick?
Times have got housing targets scrapped. More awful news from our continued failure to build enough houses. So, countries facing a house building crisis, well, it's been facing it for a very long time, hasn't it? 50 local authorities have scrapped their planning targets. And this means that housing will fall to the lowest level since 2006 in terms of new planning permission being granted. And the government scrapped their 300,000 homes per year target. And it's because of NIMBYs. So it's a NIMBYs charter, it's being called. And
Not in my backyard.
Exactly. And I understand that because I'm from the country and we don't want people coming, off-comers. We don't like them. So I do get that.
Anybody, really.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even want you back.
I know. I haven't been back in years. But the point is, you're creating a generational warfare because you've got a young generation. Well, I'm saying young generation. I can't afford a house either. Me plus the younger generation are never going to get on a housing ladder.
Yeah.
So it's a constant problem. And all we can do, as you know, Leo, is build more houses and halt immigration.
Yeah, I mean, letting in net migration levels of hundreds of thousands of people every year isn't going to help because they don't bring houses with them.
It's weird. I can't see anything about immigration in this article.
It's in there.
Is it really
very small.
Immigration isn't related to our housing crisis. You think immigration isn't an issue with our housing crisis? It doesn't contribute to it?
I think that the fact that they're not building enough homes regardless is the issue, and the fact that this is ongoing over decades now. And the idea housing targets scrapped, I mean, this is just like a perennial headline.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. How is our government not getting on top of this when this could be a headline from 10 years ago, from 15 years ago?
I think the issue is that so many places are sort of pleasant greenfield type villages and towns, and that's where they put a lot of new development, whereas really they should be developing industrial brownfield sites in our cities that are close to transport links and all the resources you need and are where people want to live.
And obviously, we haven't said the obvious that Tory voters tend to be in the places that they don't want new people building. Yeah. Right? So that's why the Tory rebels have done it. Anyway, I discussed it. So,
like you're saying, vote in a Labour government, and it's more likely to.
Vote in an actual Conservative government.
Vote in an actual
Conservative. With halt immigration, done.
Are you going to start like a party, the real Conservatives?
Well, I interviewed someone from Reform the other day on my podcast, The Current Thing, available on all platforms.
What was the question? How many minutes did it take for it to make it on the podcast?
Why don't you plug your OnlyFans as well, Nick? You know what? I'm going to cut you off now. What's on the cover of the Telegraph, Josh?
Yeah, so the big story is two British sisters shot dead in the West Bank. This happened today. We've just found out since that there was another terrorist attack in Tel Aviv. At least one person also killed. This is on the back of escalating violence. And the Telegraph nearly gets it right. They're talking about how Israel retaliated to Gaza because Hamas launched some missiles from... and if anybody launches missiles at the UK, I'm sure the UK would respond. And then that comes on the back. But what it says here, the rocket barrage followed 2 nights of Israeli police raids at the mosque in Jerusalem.
Al-Aqsa Mosque.
That caused anger in the region. What they then don't say is continuing it just a little bit further, is the reason why the Israeli police had to raid those mosques is because they had been taken over by terrorists who were lighting fireworks in the mosque, throwing rocks, had actually also kidnapped a bunch of other Palestinians, peaceful Palestinians. And so the Israelis had to go in, which this always happens this time of year, during Jewish holidays. It's Pesach.
But it did look like terrible optics for the Israeli military to go in and be beating people with the butts of rifles and things like that.
But if this had happened in St. Paul's, and a bunch of people had gone in there, setting off fireworks, throwing rocks, kidnapping people. You're telling me our police aren't going to go in?
Well, I might go to church if they did that.
Well, but the point is that they never actually go to... This is exactly what the Palestinian terrorists wanted. Now they've got it. Now the violence gets escalated. More people are dying. By the way, in Palestinian territories tonight, they're going to be handing out sweets to children celebrating the death of these 2 young British girls. And that's what they do. And then they go on about, like, yes, there are people who die in this unfortunate thing, but the Israelis don't go out and actually attack deliberately civilians. They attack terrorists. They go after terrorists who are planning plots and whatnot. This is the big difference between the 2 groups of people, yet you're never going to see that really represented, certainly online. It's incredibly frustrating, and long life to the family. And
maybe we should provide Jeremy Corbyn's take on it as balance for Ofcom.
Well, what do I have to give the pro-Palestine bit?
No, you don't. I thought you might be able to. You're a smart guy. You might be able to resolve the issue in 10 seconds.
Well, no, I try and stay out of Israel, especially with Josh here. It's one of those issues I stay out of. It's like Ireland. I'm just like, good luck, guys. Aren't we going to do the SMP one?
It's a bit more cheerful.
Yeah.
The implosion of the Scottish government. This is what I like to see.
Yeah. Do you want to do it?
No. You go.
Well, it's about the SNP auditors have quit in the wake of the scandal. Basically, their accountants have quit. You know, it's dodgy when your accountant looks at it and goes, "Nah, I'm just walking away." It's purely satirical. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this ongoing case, but that was all pure satire. But basically, their accountants looked at it and committed a sort of Japanese ritual samurai suicide. And
but this can't be the first time we've seen the SNP's accounts. They've been the auditors for a while now, and
maybe now. More things around there. Maybe things were digging up, dug up in a garden.
Maybe
we don't know.
Maybe they were told.
Yeah, it's a satire, questioning satire.
Well, maybe
what's happened?
Maybe they were told you won't get into any trouble. We run this country, so you can fiddle these books all you like. And now they're realising that actually, damn, like the SNP have gone.
Maybe, but it's supposedly this is a very unusual act for them for a company to quit like that. It's also going to be very difficult for them to find replacements, and the SNP have to file their accounts in July, I think. So this really does leave the SNP up some creek of some kind.
Well, and they don't have a paddle, which is it's going to be very difficult.
They've got 2 shovels in a garden.
I don't know what they...
Do they?
I don't know what
that's a question. Do they have shovels? Yeah.
They did have shovels. They were looking for the ghost of Scottish independence. Anyway, what have we got next? We've got sad news on the front of the Daily Star, Nick.
Yeah. Paul from S Club 7 has died at 46. An unexpected death, died suddenly. And it's very sad because S Club 7, I'm sure, was sort of part of all of our youths and, simpler times. We all enjoyed them.
I was about 30.
Yeah.
Well, that's still part of my...
You still watched it because there was some nice girls in it. But basically, it is very sad, and he seemed like a good guy. No one knows what it is yet, so I'm not going to speculate by being tasteless by speculating.
But Josh, you'll speculate, won't you?
I'll speculate on behalf of Nick. No, it's sad. Look, it's sad. They were sort of ubiquitous for a while, weren't they? They had their TV show, their videos were on all the time. I worked in music videos at the time as well, and
as a dancer.
It is sad. No, not as a dancer. Producing music videos.
Right.
And sad. Like, I don't think anybody's got a bad word to say about it.
Well, yeah, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked at seeing, how it's like George Michael. When he's young, he's so, vital and healthy, and then you see him in later years, and it's just. I think the burden of.
You still would, right?
The burden of fame for some people is just too much. Anyway, what Pulitzer Prize-winning story is the Daily Mail leading with, Josh?
Kate found Walkabout with Harry and Meghan one of the hardest things she's ever had to do. Talk about a blessed life. So they had to walk around, and she said it was real tough. This is after the death of the Queen.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see in the photo, let me move that way. No, stop camera. There we go. We can see them there. She's going through one of the toughest experiences of her life.
It does look very difficult.
Very, very difficult. Because it's gravel. People don't appreciate that. You can't really see it.
Wearing
heels, it's gravel.
She's having to spend time with Meghan Markle, which is incredibly tough. And also, apparently, what Harry did was read out the intro from his book while they were walking around. Like, look, Kate, listen to this. There's some really awful things that happened to me when I was Prince. And it just was incredibly annoying. Yeah. Very bad.
Anyway, that's it for part one. Coming up, we discuss Labour being accused of gutter politics, masks in hospitals being found to be a waste of time, and Nike responds to the Dylan Mulvaney controversy. See you in a couple of minutes.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to your Friday night headliners with me, Leo Kearse. I'm joined by Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. And let's continue, kicking off with the Times and the Labour Party are attacking Rishi over his record on child abuse. The words pot, kettle and black come to mind, Josh.
Yeah, Labour accused of gutter politics over Sunak attack ad. This is something they put out on Twitter and basically it sort of says, hey, Sunak's behind really bad stuff, except for the fact, and they're using facts from 2010. They're talking about the 4,500 adults that have been convicted for sex offences against children have not gone to prison under the Tories. Now, that's fair game, but doing it with a picture of Rishi and calling him personally to account when he wasn't an MP until 2015, that, I would argue, is not... It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Tory government absolutely needs to be held to account for many things, including some of the... this is a very valid thing. Why have, under the Tory government, so many of these people gone free? And now they're talking also about... But they've doubled down by... Labour has put out a new advert a new thing saying about a gun, people who had owned guns and with an intent to use them also getting off. So there are.
And I guess under any criminal justice system, there are going to be some people, for whatever reason, who don't get as severe sentences as we think they should.
4,500 adults convicted of sex offences against children not going to prison.
Yeah.
That seems wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, when Keir Starmer was head of the CPS, Nick, I mean, he famously, dropped the ball on grooming gangs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was it's a bad advert anyway, right? Even without the hypocrisy. But then, I just don't believe Labour do care about this stuff. They were the one, when Sarah Champion, who was in Labour, talked about the grooming gangs, she had to resign because they made a big stink about it. And they sided with Naz Shah, who liked to tweet implying it was the victim's fault, even though it was a joke tweet, which she didn't realise. That was her actual view, presumably. And then they seem to be a bit around the Scottish Gender Recognition Bill. They seem to be sort of half supporting it, which would allow 16-year-olds to basically suddenly, chemically castrate themselves.
Yeah, I believe in the Scottish Parliament, the Tories were the only opposition to the bill.
There you go. And then in general, the far left, not all of Labour, but the sort of far left, seem to push towards this weird sexualisation of minor attractive person stuff that's really sick. So I just don't trust Labour.
Like extreme minority. I wouldn't argue that there's anybody actually pushing that, any MPs or whatever.
No. It's the online stuff.
Well, there certainly were in the past. I mean, there's I can't remember what the name of the network, the something network. I can't remember.
MAP or something.
Yeah, that's minor attractive person.
Okay.
But there was some.
But that wasn't Labour, was it?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was.
I guess it was just the Tories who were just actually doing all of that stuff.
Well, I think that's a bit of a. That's a bit of a red herring.
Yeah, but it just means you don't exactly trust that Labour are going to be tough on this stuff. It's ludicrous hypocrisy, and it's a tasteless ad. And actually, even their own side have all criticised it and said, "What are we doing?"
Someone defended Lucy Powell's shadow culture secretary. She said it was a skit. Like, supposedly... I know.
Satirical content. They're trying to use the same get out we do.
That's who uses the word skit anymore. It says it's a take on the graphics that the Prime Minister himself has produced in the past. So...
there's the advert
thing. The problem is, as we know with our skits, is you have to trust that the audience are going to get the reference. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you quote a film or you...
This obviously isn't a satirical advert. This obviously isn't mocking, some sort of... they're saying it's mocking a Tory dog whistle or anything.
It's not a meme, is it?
It's not. It's not. This is just a direct attack on Rishi Sunak. Is this flimsy data?
Is this final proof
Data's true.
Is this final proof that the left can't meme? That's what I want to know. But also, to answer your question, Josh, who says skit? The answer is audiences who've just seen you do stand-up.
Yeah.
And they go, I liked your skit or sketch.
Oh, really?
It's a set. It's not as... have you not had that?
No, I run.
I'm retired, but that's what did it. People calling it a skit.
Oh, really?
Anyway, the Mail now, and it turns out that another COVID restriction was a completely useless waste of taxpayers' money. Nick.
Yeah, what is that? It's the sound of vindication, Leo, because were masks in hospitals a waste of time? Hated NHS policy made no difference to COVID infection rates, study finds. Some of us said this, some of us got called all sorts of names. I lost some friends. One said that I deserved months of suffering for not wearing a mask. Masks were always nonsense. People who pushed masks were deranged ideologues. It was never medical. That's my opinion. And so it's researchers at St George's Hospital in South West London have analysed data from a 40-week period between December 2021 and September 2022, and they found that masks did nothing. There's no significant difference. And there's many similar studies. The metadata are in. They didn't do anything. People in Sweden didn't wear them. Nothing happened. Yeah. All nonsense.
Well, it says it's at best modest. It doesn't say it doesn't have no impact.
That's their way of saying.
But the question is whether it did.
I mean, it says no statistically significant change.
Yeah.
So that's no statistically significant change isn't a modest improvement, which would be.
And also, it would be interesting to see whether this. I mean, look, there's been a lot of studies about showing how masks actually were a bit rubbish and didn't do what the government said. And even the government's own research said that before it all sort of really kicked off.
Masks were used as a palliative so that people would feel that something was being done, would feel psychologically safer.
You can see, because it was a gaseous form, it came out, like there were specific types of high-end masks that made a difference, but the ones that people were wearing around just made it would come out the side. But the fact that my kids were in school, in secondary school, my eldest, and wearing it in hot summer days with marks on his face, sweating, not being able to communicate, not being able to see each other. It was his first year of secondary school where you're forming friends and you've got to walk around with these masks on. And then we find out that it was totally nothing to do with the science and just this government trying to keep up with Scotland.
Yes.
I still feel disgusted about it.
Yeah. And you're right, and that people really gaslighted us and said, oh, there's no cost to them. I mean, you know, they're obviously not healthy, and also, like you say, you can't communicate, it's bad for children, their development and so on. And everyone pretended like, oh, there's nothing wrong with them, there's no cost to them, just wear one, shut up and wear the mask. It's like, get lost, you lose.
But you know, another study that came out today said that supposedly a lot of COVID was transmitted through surfaces. Yeah. And that was the thing that I was convinced was a load of rubbish from day one. I was like, no viruses stay on surface, but supposedly actually surfaces were in your household. That's how people in your household.
So we need to get a mask on the table. Yeah. Anyway, the Telegraph now reporting on another kick in the balls for trans athletes, Josh.
Indeed. That's also going to hear that phrase later, won't we? You're going to use it.
We don't need to apologise because he meant balls like sporting balls.
Oh, I see. Yes.
I
see.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, very good. Biden proposal opens doors for US schools to ban some trans athletes. Now, day one of his presidency, the executive order that he put through was essentially the idea was it was to protect trans rights, and actually it would withdraw funding from colleges and schools that didn't, and part of it was that didn't allow children in, like, protected sports, let trans kids in sports and stuff.
Right.
Even though, at the time, lots of people had said, look, there's a real problem here. Here we are a couple of years later, that was 2001.
There's a real problem with like, Leah Thomas, for example, going into college swimming, and she's like 2 feet taller than the other swimmers. Yeah. She's like a hulking biological male.
2 years later or whatever, 2021, and he's now saying that there's going to be a new law, an amendment added to a law that now schools can ban individual people. And that is... you know, fair enough, but it's ridiculous that it's gotten to this point where this is the first time this administration has sort of actually in any way really stepped into this kind of issue.
Yeah, all I've seen...
For anybody with eyes and who's not been brainwashed by the gender ideology, you could see how it was unfair.
Well, yeah, and all I've seen from the Biden administration so far is meeting Dylan Mulvaney at the White House and you know, bending the knee to transgender ideology.
Absolutely, and that's why this headline's misleading. The real headline should be that Biden blocks the full ban, but has now allowed exceptions. They really blocked the full ban on trans athletes, and they've allowed exceptions. And like you say, they've been pushing this crazy narrative post-Nashville. They had the Trans Day of Visibility. The White House press secretary, 3 days after the Nashville shooting, said that, oh, trans people are under attack, even though a trans person had just killed 6 people, including 3 children. So very tasteless. This strange narrative. They're pretending there's a trans genocide and all this. Many people on Twitter think they're encouraging violence, violent retribution. Then they want a kind of new Jan 6. That's speculation.
Did you not see the woman today getting punched in the face?
Yes,
today,
Riley Gaines, do you mean?
Yeah,
in the article, yeah. Riley Gaines, this 23-year-old woman trying to defend women's sports, got physically assaulted. It's disgusting.
And obviously, people on the left will say that this is, oh, she's a TERF, she's a Nazi, she deserves it. And we see the minimising, and even coming out on the side of the Nashville shooter, which was insane. And some of the language around it from the White House press secretary, and even AOC has spoken of trans kids. They're going to fight back. It's almost insightful. It's inciting the violence.
Katie Hobbs's press secretary had to resign because she posted a meme of someone with 2 guns saying this is how we deal with transphobes. Just after the shooting.
Jeez.
Yeah. And Carly Provenza did. Another Democrat, I'm not sure what's happened to her. It's disgusting. They're creating this illusion for disturbed people to believe that they're under attack.
They're the victims of it. And then they go out to be incredibly violent and actually act on this violence.
Yeah, absolutely. The Mail now, and trans women aren't just taking over women's sports, they're also taking over adverts for women's sports gear, Nick.
Yeah, so this is Nike tells furious customers, be kind, be inclusive, as it responds to backlash over paying trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney to promote sports bras, and customers have pledged to boycott it. And the story is about Sharon Davis saying, this is appalling, why is this happening, such a setback for women? And many people have said, why are they promoting this person who demeans women with these absurd act-outs, this absurd sort of demeaning, pretends to be a little girl and stuff. It's all disgusting and mad. Well, the reason is there are 2 big theories that I've heard. One is that it's just some sort of young millennial firm says, look, Dylan Mulvaney seems to get amazing numbers on the algorithm. Maybe we should hire them. And some executive goes, yeah, fine. That's one theory. The other one's more interesting. It's this thing, the Corporate Equity Index. I don't know if you've heard of it. Much like the Stonewall Workplace Equity Index, you essentially get points for being as deranged and leftist as possible. You remember the Stonewall thing that Stephen Nolan investigated? He found it to be basically a pyramid scheme. James Lindsay has called this US equivalent an extortion racket. And that in itself is run by something called the Human Rights Campaign, which turns out to be one of these sort of lefty organisations that has a charitable wing funded by all the usual Democrats. So it started in 2008. So it's this weird thing, this point system for being diverse. So companies are rewarded for this kind of rubbish.
So that's why Bud Light, all these companies, all these mainstream companies, I mean, Bud Light, for example, you wouldn't expect its drinkers would really be, aligned with Dylan Mulvaney so much. They're using Dylan Mulvaney in their adverts. We've actually got the Nike advert here to play.
Oh, we go.
So they're...
it's a caricature, and for women, they find it very offensive.
That is just what a woman's like.
Yeah. That's a women's sport. But do you remember all the adverts, like women run like this? There was this brilliant advert, and it was like girls run like this, and it was like girls running like...
That's what girls run
like a normal human being, and that's a caricature, and it's offensive to women. Also,
no, it's not. Nike... That's just what women are like.
Yeah. Well, when Nike is pulling its funding from actual female athletes because they get pregnant and reducing funding by 70% or whatever. But look, you mentioned Bud Light. Now companies are stopping stocking it. You mentioned Nike now. I'm glad that I'm a New Balance person, and. Because that's the only thing you can do is boycott them and show that I would buy presents from Body Shop, but Body Shop was disgraceful with a tweet it sent out about J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
Innocent Drinks, they also did a thing. They banned a woman just because someone said, "Oh, she's a TERF," so they cancelled
automatically.
So there's a lot of products that I just don't use anymore.
Just one
Nike
thing,
actually.
I think New Balance are pro-Trump. Sorry to ruin it for you.
Well, just Nike actually came out and responded to some of the angry women who are furious. They said they told angry women who are furious about a biological male advertising their gear, saying, "Be kind, be inclusive."
Yeah.
And I see this language, this "be kind, be inclusive" language being used it used to be used as a shield to protect people. Now it's being used as a sword to attack people.
The people I saw first use it were Cool Knights and whatever. And since then, anybody who says "be kind" online, certainly, are usually the thickest, most evil, nasty people. I can't even swear, so I don't want to get into it. But they are, and thus the biggest hypocrites of it. Like the most vicious people of it. And by the way, I just want to say one more thing Nike has also. This is the second trans, and Dylan Mulvaney is a biological man, still hasn't transitioned. So the idea that they've designed this product for women, for biological women, for their breasts to help them play sport, and they've just given it to biological man to advertise to use is ridiculous. Like, what does that say about their product?
A sports bra to hold somebody who doesn't have breasts.
But the other trans star, the first person they've ever sort of done before this, in 2021 they launched for Mara Gomez. She plays in the Argentina's professional football league. So they basically, by sponsoring someone who's in professional sports on a women's team, they're basically saying we endorse cheating.
Yeah.
That's what they've done. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the message is be kind, be inclusive. Unless you're a woman, then shut up and stop complaining. Right? That's basically what they're saying.
That sums up the last 5 years.
The patriarchy's back, baby. The patriarchy's back. Anyway, that's part 2 done. Coming up after the break, we discuss a man having a real crucifixion for Good Friday, the Little Mermaid lyrics rewritten to include consent, and drug-fueled cave raves over 3,000 years ago. You won't want to miss it.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Leo Kearse. Let's get stuck back into it. The Times reports from France, where a marginalised religious minority is erecting symbols, Nick.
True, it's Christian. So crucifixes have risen up across France in a message that this is a Christian country. And what they're doing is raising up on tractors these big crucifixes, cavalries, and they've been scattered around France in the 19th century by missionaries, and they're trying to restore them to sort of demonstrate the Catholic faith, because there's this quite shocking statistic that in 1950, 25% of French people went to Mass every Sunday. Today, it's only 1.8% of the population. Yeah, and they say that they're not even sure it's faith that they're reawakening, but they're bringing back hope. And, of course, critics are saying it's some sort of right-wing gesture. And it says here the charity receives support from members of Eric Zemmour's party, so that's the right-wing party, which has promoted the conspiracy theory that Catholics in France are being replaced by Muslim immigrants. Another conspiracy theory there. So, yeah, it's, you know, and they're doing this to remind people it's a Christian land. So, obviously, that's going to be seen now as some sort of terrible conservative gesture, but is it that bad?
Well, is it a Christian land? I mean, it's the idea is it has laws specifically to separate the church and the state. They see it as an atheist state with no religion is meant to dominate.
But those laws arose from a Judeo-Christian framework.
I understand that, but the idea here is that it's funny because the president of this society who does all this sort of had this outburst and sort of said, "We've not given up the fight." Like, what fight? And we are not just building mosques in this France. And he's saying this is a Christian land. Anyway, then someone who actually works in the organisation says, "Yeah, I was a little angry with him for saying that." Because he sort of revealed, but he's like, he just said that in a personal capacity. But really, we're just about going out on a Sunday and having fun. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, your president kind of said some pretty on-the-edge stuff there.
They point out, it is interesting, they point out that the remaining members of the faith tend to be the most conservative because they're the ones left, so they're the hardcore. Yeah, it makes sense. But is it such a bad thing to be, France aside, because they're weird, but I think the same here. We are a Christian country. Other countries are Muslim countries. That's great for them. Saudi Arabia, we don't go over there and say, can you guys be Christian? What's wrong with being a Christian country?
Well, we're seeing in parts of the UK that we're not a Christian country anymore. I mean, for example, in Wakefield, when a child scuffed a copy of the Quran, he was investigated by the police and sentenced with a non-crime hate incident, which suggests that we now have Islamic blasphemy laws in the UK, so it's not a Christian country anymore.
I know, so what we can do, Leo, sadly, is get tractors out and erect crosses.
Erect crosses,
Or we could get some Bibles and prove the point.
That sounds like hard work.
Oh, yeah, fine.
The Mirror now with a story about crucifixion that should have been in the Daily Nail. Josh.
Yeah. Hey, you're on form tonight.
What would it make you cross?
A man cries out in agony as he's nailed to cross in real crucifixion on Good Friday. Now, this is in Manila, in this little village. This guy's been doing it for years now. Supposedly there's 8 people who get up, and in their village, they all actually do proper crucifixions. They get nailed up, but they only get nailed up for 10 minutes. So I think they're kind of wimps.
But still,
look, there we go.
The nails go through their hands.
Yeah, whatever. But also they have to carry the wooden cross across their back for more than a kilometre in the scorching heat. That's good cardio, in a way. That might be a positive thing.
Is it CrossFit?
Did you have that pre-written? Or no. That's very good. I mean, I think this is offensive. It's cultural appropriation. There they are. You've got a guy, a Manilian guy. What are Manilian people called? Manilians? Filipinos. Okay. Anyway, look at him dressing up as a Jew, and this is deeply offensive.
This is all quite blasphemous on Easter, guys. I'm just going to give the. I mean, look, he says here. To be honest, I always feel nervous because I could end up dead on the cross. I suppose that would be like the ultimate tribute. But this is.
He does know that they're not real Romans,
and he won't come back to life.
What bothers me, like, it's their tradition. That's fine, but I'm not sure you're supposed to like literally. I mean, Christ did this so that we didn't have to.
Yeah.
He kind of absolved us of all our sins. I'm not sure you should literally imitate Christ by getting on the cross. So that's my slight qualm about it. We follow the example, but we don't have to.
He does say it's done in a very respectful way.
Okay. Well, this has been so disrespectful of Christians, this section.
And Jews.
I'm actually going to send in an Ofcom complaint about this.
I don't know. I think they nailed it. Anyway, the Times now, and Disney has decided to stop teaching kids to be rapists, Nick.
That's such an obscure intro. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're talking about Mermaid. Oh, OK. You've skipped several stories and you've done an obscure intro. But I've got it now, guys. Little Mermaid lyrics, have been rewritten to include consent. That sounds fun. So there's a live-action remake of Little Mermaid. They've got rid of all the white people. Now they're getting rid of all the good lyrics.
But all the white mermaids?
Yeah. Remember Ariel?
My point is like mermaids are mythical creatures.
Well, think about it. If you're under the sea, you're not going to get much sun. You're bound to be white, aren't you? Think about it.
That's nice you're delving into the science of mermaids.
That's a really good point. I mean, killer whales kind of suggest that theory doesn't play out. But, I mean, the mermaids in the first film, Josh, were white. Like, in the cartoon. I got no problem with them being, everybody in every Disney film being turned black. But, I mean, they were white.
So, and anyway, the point is lyrics have been rewritten. So there used to be things like kiss the girl, and it used to say that you could just kiss her without... It says, don't take a word, not a single word, go on and kiss the girl. Now, of course, you've got to say, can I have consent, please, first? And there's a really weird bit where Ursula... Even her song is being taken out, even though she's the evil one saying an evil thing in context. Not much fan of context. She's saying things like that she's implying that the mermaid should be withdrawn. I mean, and demure and sort of. She's right in that case.
But she's trying to persuade her to lose her voice to do it. She says, no, you don't need your voice because up in the real world. Up in the air.
Yeah, and I happen to agree with everything she said, but she was the villain, and so they can't even have that because they're so idiotic and they don't care about context.
So even the villains have to say good things and be good people. This is going to be great for drama.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't go all the way and just, instead that she's actually like a they, them, kiss the they, them.
A fisher them. Could have had Sam Smith. And there's a fish of them. Anyway, coming up in the last section, we discuss Tesla staff sharing sensitive videos, the reason why your marriage could end, and the post-sex phenomenon, blue vulva. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of Headliners. The Metro now reports on how your Tesla might be sending pictures of your pert buttocks to complete strangers, Josh.
Well, mine are quite saggy, but thank you. Tesla staff shared and joked about sensitive videos recorded by vehicles. This makes me glad that I'm not rich or even have any money at all, because then I don't have to worry about this kind of thing. But those people who have Teslas, they when they sign up to a program that supposedly helps Tesla collect information to do its self-driving stuff in a couple of years. Right. That means they've got cameras in the car, and when they're in garages, all this information will get sent back to Tesla's headquarters, and they were sharing all these videos of people's garages, including Musk's garage, because they found out that it had 007's car in it, the submarine car. And also they shared some sick ones of like kids getting run over, and also some funny, nudie ones and whatever. And
a slightly worrying one of somebody being dragged into a Tesla against their will.
Exactly. So they used to send that, and they thought it was funny, and then they said, oh yeah, people at Tesla who got promotions were usually the ones who had the funniest jokes and whatnot.
What's incredible is this isn't like we could see them doing laundry. Who's doing laundry in their car? Like, I thought Tesla people had money.
Outside, in their garage, is the point.
Oh, it's in the garage.
You can pay for the attachment. Hangs off the side.
Elon Musk, we found out that he owns a really cool submarine. Someone else, we found out that they had sexual wellness items. Like, it was a real lottery of what you're going to find out.
Sexual wellness?
Wellness items. We can't say...
It's the best euphemism I've heard. That's like sexual wellness things. And so what it says is, in these videos, the reason is it's to help this car sort of... deal with these
become a better burglar.
Well, to deal with these items, if it's confronted in real life with these items, so I was just thinking if it was confronted by a sexual wellness item, it would sort of brake, reverse, do a U-turn, and then reverse.
See if it could reuse some of that rubber in its tyres.
Just making the case for petrol cars, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep hold of them. Anyway, the Telegraph now reporting on a Labrador who got addicted to booze. Apparently, he's feeling rough. It's actually a really sad story, Nick.
It is. Alcoholic dog becomes first canine to be treated for addiction. So a 2-year-old Labrador cross required emergency care and is still very anxious, apparently. But it has learnt the ability to speak and convey emotions, so that's a bonus. But it is a sad story, basically, because one of the dogs died and didn't recover from, like, the fits and stuff.
And what it was just from withdrawal.
Withdrawal symptoms, because someone...
there it is,
There you go. I hope that's the one that survived. I mean, it's very sad. Someone basically left out drinks. Never leave... This is more of a public safety announcement. Never leave your alcohol out at night, Leo. Yeah. Your can of Tennent's. Because the dog will drink it, and then it gets addicted to alcohol.
But this must have been a deliberate thing, because nobody accidentally leaves drinks out night after night. I think he was, filling a bowl or something for the dog.
It doesn't say that, though. It might have just been an alky who just leaves it out, and then they get a taste for it. Or whatever, I don't know. Alcoholics, what do they do?
I think we should speculate more.
Are we trying to waste time here?
No, we're not. Actually, we've got loads to get through. The Daily Mail now, and a psychologist has revealed the secret to happy families. Why hasn't he shared them before, Josh?
I know, crazy. This is about one of the best TV shows on television, certainly at the moment, how succession, squabbling, and headliners, squabbling siblings could easily get along. There's a Harvard psychologist who reveals the 4 key mistakes that the Roys make, and they avoid the truth, which is basically lying. They fail to trust each other. There's fear-based management and fake apologies. Now, all of these 4 qualities I'm trying to instill in my children So we'll see how it works out in the long run.
Right, yeah.
You've probably seen Succession, like Josh says, one of the best shows ever created by Jesse Armstrong, who did Peep Show. But the conventional wisdom is that they're all horrible people. My counterintuitive theory is that they're actually great people. They're conservatives. They run this conservative network. They're funny. And Kendall's got empathy. Roman's funny. And my other theory is that the actual actors are worse people than the characters. Think about it. Brian Cox is an SMP fan.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Kendall seems very woke. So my counterintuitive theory, they're actually great people. And that's why we like watching them. Tom's a great guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with those theories necessarily. I mean, I don't know if they're right-wing
like
as
Greg
such.
then. I don't agree
I
with
think
you.
all they care about is money and power and whatnot. I don't know if those are
But the great thing...
Logan's a bit evil and Shiv, but I like Roman. Carry on.
The great thing about capitalism is that people can be horrible, grasping, venal, greedy, terrible people, and the system still works. To be greedy, to get other people's money, they create something that other people want.
Greed
so they
is
can sell it to
good.
them.
You just turned into Gordon Gekko.
Greed is good. Greed is very good.
You thought Wall Street was a
It's interesting,
documentary.
But they're saying here 44% of British adults claim they're at war with another family member.
I'm at war with another family member.
Oh, yeah?
My mum evicted my dad. He went into hospital and she basically changed the locks so he can't get back home.
Wow, your life sounds like an episode of Shameless.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
It's I mean, it's slightly more middle class than that, but thanks for assuming the
Sorry
worst.
to hear that.
And that was commissioned, that study, by an online casino for some reason. I genuinely don't know why.
Another one of those press releases that gets turned into a newspaper article. Anyway, the eye now, and some good news for you, Nick. There's an upside to being useless.
This story, Leo, it seems almost designed to annoy misogynists, this story. It says, men, this is the reason your marriage will end, and it's that women initiate the vast majority of divorces. It's not that, actually, even though that's true. It's allegedly because men have something called weaponized incompetence, which means they don't want to do the dishes, so they pretend to do it badly. This whole thing is a hit piece on men. This guy says his marriage ended because he was leaving clothes on the floor and stuff, and his wife couldn't take it. Just pick them up. I mean, like, why can't... And it also says that the woman gets used to being an expert on the baby and how you sort of manage the baby or whatever. It's like, well, what's wrong with that? That worked for thousands of years. I mean, I'm sorry. And it's an attack on men because it uses the phrase patriarchal society. And so it's just another attack on men saying, oh, we're just these incompetent Homer Simpson type people. Whereas in reality, we just have different skills. And what is wrong with that?
Yeah. But then they're saying a lot of male skills are not time sensitive. So they're not something that needs to be done at a specific time, at a specific place, such as cooking a child dinner or dressing a child for school is time sensitive. Whereas clearing out the garage.
I think so much of this is just stereotypes, and maybe I live in some bubble in North London, whatever I do. But I do the childcare, I do cooking, I do the shopping, whatever, and it frustrates me, this idea, this kind of like that daddy daycare, like that film, like just men are useless when they come. I'm a hands-on dad, and when my kids were babies, I was hands-on, and I did the bits that she could, and we do. I'm not perfect at everything, but we complement each other. But this whole idea of weaponizing competence, there is some truth to it. I used to I do a joke about it, about being terrible in bed, because that would, she wouldn't expect anything, and it wasn't a joke at all, actually. It was just...
It was a statement.
I didn't do it as a joke.
You're right, though. It says men don't replace the finished loo roll, which I always do. And it says they don't cook. My dad's a chef. It's just anti-male propaganda. Can you imagine the reverse article? You would never see it, Josh, except maybe on my Substack.
I'm glad you got that particular plug in there as well.
Anyway, the Daily Mail now, and women can get blue balls, apparently. Look, it's 2023. Women actually have balls, Josh.
Forget blue balls. Now doctors are warning about blue vulva. Post-sex phenomenon doesn't just strike men. This is a Dr. Malik. She's an associate professor of surgery at the University of Maryland. And she says, and it goes into a nice big scientific explanation for blue testicles, and says there's not much, very little medical literature on the topic. So I've sent her a couple of links.
She wants to go to the University of Smurfland.
Yeah, but I didn't know. Did you know that the scrotum turns a bluish colour? That's why it's called it.
That's when you need, you're hyperventilating.
No, but the idea is if there isn't a finish, that you get this thing.
Oh,
so
really?
That's it, but they turn blue.
But
right, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that's why it was for.
I'm going to have a look.
Yeah,
I question
Wait a minute,
this
let's finish the show in style.
When it says
this isn't Channel 4, Josh.
Oh, yeah.
When it says post-sex phenomenon, surely it's a pre-phenomenon. Like, if it's post, you've done something
if it's post,
wrong,
you
right?
didn't get anything.
You didn't finish.
Yeah.
Right.
You didn't finish.
You can't say any of the words
it's nice
in this story.
that women also suffer
You like that
from that. But that does suggest that women have to be Also excited.
Yeah. This is a terrible story to do just before the breakfast, show.
Morning,
and the
everybody.
repeat.
Did you choose this story, John?
The other producer with me. It wasn't me, it was the other one. I did think it was funny. I should maybe have put it in a bit earlier.
But is there an actual... are there any health issues that can happen from blue vulva or the male version?
Yes. You can go infertile.
Really?
No, but if you want to make sure that you can... if you want a partner to have sex with you, tell them that.
If you want them to really finish. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Daily Mail has Kate found walkabout with Harry and Meghan, one of the hardest things she's ever had to do, which must mean that she hasn't done any very difficult things. The Guardian has personalised cancer jabs may be ready in 5 years. Some good news to look forward to. The Times has housing targets scrapped. We're not going to have enough houses for people in the future. The Telegraph has 2 sisters shot dead in the West Bank. The Eye goes with Blair, don't take peace in Northern Ireland for granted. And finally, the Daily Star has suns out, buns out, spring heat wave next week. Looks like we're going to be wearing T-shirts soon. Anyway, that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Nick and Josh. And remember that if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, stay tuned for the breakfast show right after the break. See you next time. In fact, I'm on, Saturday night. So I'll see you at the next show. Bye.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes & Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway, Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 7 o'clock and I'm Darren Grimes in for Lawrence Fox. If you're listening on DAB Plus and you're stuck in a queue, then we're going to help you pass the time and keep you informed. First up, we're going to be talking about the migrant barge. It's split opinion in the Conservative Party, but is it actually going to work? I'm speaking to an immigration lawyer and I'm sure we may not see eye to eye, so you won't want to miss that one. Then I debate the week's news with the Fox and Hounds panel. I'm sitting in for the Fox and welcome two news hounds to digest the Trump indictment, King Charles' support for a report into royal family slavery links, and that Labour campaign post. And finally, the Easter getaway is underway. Will you be heading to a beach or local beauty spot this weekend? The government has pledged to ban those pesky pollutant plastic-based wet wipes as well. But is that enough to clean up our rivers and coastlines? And don't forget, most importantly, is your voice. I want to hear from you. Send your views my way, gbviews@gbnews.uk. That's all coming up after the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Darren, thank you. Good evening. I am Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Opposition politicians in Scotland are urging the SNP to be fully transparent about its finances. After it emerged the firm which audits the party's accounts has resigned. Johnston Carmichael says it made the decision after reviewing its client portfolio. Earlier this week, the former SNP chief executive, Peter Murrell, who is Nicola Sturgeon's husband, was arrested by police investigating the party's finances. He was released without charge pending further investigation. Police in Northern Ireland are warning their officers could be targeted by dissidents in Londonderry this Easter. That's ahead of a state visit by the US President, who's arriving in Belfast on Tuesday. The PSNI says it's received strong intelligence that attacks are being planned for Bank Holiday Monday. MI5 raised the terrorism threat level in the country to severe following the shooting of a senior detective, John Caldwell. Russia has charged a US journalist with espionage. Evan Gershkovich, who works for the Wall Street Journal, is accused of trying to obtain Russian military secrets on behalf of Washington. He pleaded not guilty earlier this week and maintains he was working as a journalist. But Russia's Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, says he was caught red-handed. President Joe Biden has described the claims of espionage as ridiculous and demanded his release. The Foreign Secretary is calling for a de-escalation of tensions in the Middle East after Israel launched airstrikes in Lebanon and the Gaza Strip. Israel says they acted in retaliation to Palestinian rocket attacks. In the occupied West Bank, 2 Israeli sisters have been shot and killed in their car, and their mother is in a critical condition in hospital. It comes amid a rise in violence in Jerusalem too during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, as well as the Jewish Passover holiday. The Labour Party has stood by an advert that claims Rishi Sunak doesn't think child sex abusers should go to prison. Labour posted the ad on Twitter, pitching itself as the party of law and order, but it's drawn criticism from MPs, with senior Tory ministers accusing Labour of a vile and desperate campaign.